Mr. DeZiel is stuck in traffic, so he will be here later, but I think we need to move ahead as much as I would like to make sure he hears this MS4 presentation. We need to move along. First item on the agenda is the minutes, the minutes from 8:28 and 9:05. 8:28 is our regular meeting, and 9:05 is the tour of the facilities. Any issues or with the minutes, Sarah?
No, I read them and they look good to me.
Okay. Entertain a motion?
I guess I will move to approve the minutes.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Next item is a presentation on MS4, and we're also going to move item 6, which is the stormwater utility budget, to follow right in behind that because those two tie together significantly.
All right, so start with you. I think I'd like to go over a little bit of background overview of the permit, just really quick. Would
you introduce? I'm sorry, I didn't introduce you. Introduce yourself for the okay. Public.
I'm Eric Henningsgaard with SCH, consultant with the city. I've been working on stormwater tasks for the city and other things as well, but tonight talking about stormwater. Okay. And so what I'd like to go through really quick is a brief overview for the new members of what the permit is, why we're involved, and then go through what we've done to date and kind of then moving forward. That sounds all right. So in 2010, the new census that came out, 10,000 people, 10,000 population, required that Hudson get an MS4 permit through the DNR. That's a municipal separate storm sewer permit. You don't have to write that down, just MS4. That's how everybody pretty much knows it by. But basically what that is it regulates the stormwater discharge from the city. And it's all water quality based. So it's water quality that discharges into any waters of the state. Obviously here it's more the river and Lake Malibu centered, but it's all about water quality, stormwater quality discharging from the city. And so in 2015, the city was issued the permit, and we kind of started from there. And there's all this, it's a, I don't know, 20 to 30 page permit with a bunch of different requirements in it. And it's kind of a work in progress. And the first couple of things that we did is we updated the city's storm sewer mapping system so that you know where all your stormwater is going and where it goes out to the different water bodies, the river and the lake. We did that. We completed that as part of a GIS update that they did with water and sanitary as well. Completed that, updated the maps that's been in and submitted. And maybe I should mention too, as part of this whole program implementation, the MS4, meeting the permit requirements, we, the city, applied and received a planning grant that we continue to work through. I believe the total was $74,000. Do you remember if that's the right number? Yeah, okay. Approximately that. And so we started working through these different tasks. First was the mapping. We did that. The next thing that we did was a modeling. So like I said, it's all about pollution and cleaning the stormwater. So we had to model the entire city and determine how much dirt and phosphorus is discharged into the river and the lake. And we get a certain limit. We as a city get a certain limit that it can be discharged at. And through that modeling process was determined and agreed by the DNR that the city actually meets those requirements already with their current infrastructure. The reason why it worked really is that the city has several areas that don't get to the river. They infiltrate before they get there, soak into the ground. So we didn't have to we don't have to do other improvements to meet these limits of dirt and phosphorus discharge. So that's good. That's a good thing. And so now it brings us to today and what we've been working on now. And at the last Public Works Committee meeting that I was at, the committee and ultimately the council approved us going forward on setting up these policies and procedures for stormwater. It's all part of the DNR permit again, but this listed out half a dozen things that the permit requires, both that we set up, we track, and that we actually do. So there's several different areas, and I'll read off them quick and give a quick background, but there's public education and outreach that you have to do, and that's just like it sounds, educating public. Create a public involvement and participation program, goes right along with education, getting involvement from the public, reaction from the public. Illicit discharge elimination program, you have to look for illicit discharge. Imagine somebody dumping oil down the sewer drain, thinking it goes somewhere else besides the lake. Construction site pollution control, that's during construction. When there's bare ground, dirt can easily run off the site. That's to keep it on site. Post-construction and stormwater management, that's all the ponds that get constructed. Any new development that disturbs over an acre requires stormwater management both by the DNR and by your new ordinance. Actually, that's something I didn't mention too. That's something we updated in April of 2017. We had updated your ordinances, and so you're required to put in, if you do disturbance over an acre, you have to put in some sort of stormwater control. The easiest one to imagine is a pond that you see next to a Target or a Walmart. Almost any development, you'll see some sort of stormwater control, and there's other things like rain gardens and other things that can be used too. But so those post-construction controls, and then there's some other things like salt and street sweeping policies and things that the city needs to follow. So what we're going through now is all those things I just listed. Like I said, you have to track and implement. So, you know, the construction site erosion control, you have to go out and do inspections and make sure that people are putting up silt fence and that dirt isn't getting into the storm sewer drains. And so that, you know, requires somebody to do that. David Gray does a lot of that now with his building inspections, but there's going to be some overlap pieces that don't fit into his piece that you'll have to do. And the post-construction, the maintenance and management of these ponds. The idea is that these ponds take dirt out of the stormwater before it goes into the river, and that dirt needs to be cleaned out. And there's lots of ponds throughout the city right now that that are city-owned and maintained, but it's kind of set it and forget it type deal that there hasn't been any maintenance really done on them in a lot of years, and now a lot of them are coming due that going to need to do some maintenance on them, make sure that they continue to function, so that that model that we put together that shows that you're meeting the pollution standards, that those still work, that we included in the model. Mm-hmm. So public education too, that's ongoing as well, and all these different policies and procedures that we're working on are going to require time to implement. That's part of what's coming up in the budget discussions too, I know.
So then every year, you know, SEH helps us file a annual report that we submit to the DNR to, you know, meet the recommendations or the requirements by the DNR. We have to supply them with the annual report with, you know, all of the staff training, all the community outreach we've done, all of these inspections, the illicit discharge. We'll have to start testing for illicit discharge periodically throughout the season. Have to keep record of that on top of all the maintenance that we're doing on our ponds. It all goes into one report that we give to them, and they review it, and then they, you know, let us know if we, you know, extend our permit or if we need to do things differently to meet that requirement. So it's quite extensive work, and now is, we were issued our first permit in 2015, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they give you a few years to kind of start implementing or setting up a management plan, which SEH will be helping us with, is setting up a management plan that we can, have some better direction on what we need to do. But then, so they give you a few years to set one up, and then after that, they require that year after year after year annual report. So.
Yeah, yep, and they do. And actually, the timelines are in the permit, and we're actually behind on the schedule right now.
Okay.
The DNR obviously has set timelines, but they want to see progress. And they want to see it, that you're moving forward with the program. Part of the delay was the grant in that piece. We really needed the storm sewer map done before we could do the modeling, and then working through the policies and procedures. It kind of comes in order, and we're working through it, and we've been in contact with the DNR too, and they're good with our progress. But once this all gets set up, then makes right every year you have to do your annual report, and you have to track everything that you've been doing throughout the year.
Do we have a current deadline
for the policies and procedures
to be complete?
Yeah, well, we don't have actually a set deadline right now. We had talked before at our last meeting that we had with staff that we would be reviewing at the end of August. Now it's end of September, and we're still working on it. And that was actually part and due in part because of the grant. Again, there was some organizational things that needed to be done with the changeover of staff, of the city engineer leaving in public works and everything, just the way it happened.
Yeah.
So, but in the next month here, we'll have to have that because the grant is due at the end of the year. It's December 31st is the end, and so this next month we'll be reviewing and finalizing the plan to be able to submit it to the DNR.
Yeah.
The policies and procedures, this last piece here.
So then once those plans and policies and procedures are set, is that something that we're going to want to bring to council for their review and approval, I would assume?
Yeah, I do think I think you should.
Yep.
And I don't know how it doesn't have to be a formal, like a resolution or anything, but I think that at least knowledge of it and acknowledging it, I don't know how the council they can decide, I guess, how they want to act on it, but or if they need to.
Right offhand, I would think at least approval of this plan is exactly what process we follow, but the council definitely should be approving the plan because it's going to mean spending money.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and part of the program is keeping elected officials knowledgeable and up to date on what's happening. So expect that at least once a year it should be an agenda item.
Right.
Maybe it's towards the end of the year. Maybe you do it in spring too, just an MS4 update kind of thing. Doesn't have to be long, but just to keep informed of where the program is.
Yeah. Touch on these
6
4 or 5 or these items here.
Yeah.
Just boom, here's where we are on each of these.
Yep.
The first question will be whether we will consume all the grant money that we don't lose any of that money. So.
No.
So we'll be having another report here at the end of October on this?
I think what I'll do is, what I'll do is I'll get the final report from Eric. We'll review it internally with staff, and then I would present it to the council at an October or November meeting for final adoption.
Not come back to this.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are there any questions for Eric on MS4? Is there anything else that you wanted to cover, Eric? Or is that pretty much?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
I had one question. It's just a more curiosity than a need to know. So for every acre disturbed, you need a pond. Is there a next level, like at 5, you need 2 ponds, or is there
Yeah, so that's, the 1 acre is a threshold that you need to get a permit, but then the size of the pond depends on what you're building.
Okay.
So when you get done, if it's a soccer field, you don't have much for stormwater control. But if it's a parking lot and, an acre of parking lot in a building, then you have more stormwater control. So the size of the pond really just depends on what you're developing.
Okay.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
To be monitoring, I think the illicit discharge and elimination program sounds like a whole new activity
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
And that means a person?
Yeah. So yeah, and that's, I don't know if we want to jump into the budget, but a lot of the items that Eric is talking about will be new to the city of Hudson. Like you mentioned, David Gray does some of the pre-construction monitoring, but he doesn't look for erosion control. So I mean, that's something that will be added, the post-construction, the illicit discharge testing, the maintenance of the pond. So all these items are going to be new jobs that we currently don't do within the city, within our staff. So that's why, when we look at the budget, we're looking at, or, staff is recommending that we hire a new full-time employee to help cover some of these tasks and duties that are going to fall upon the city from here on out.
I see no reason to not move right into this.
Yeah. So let's cover the stormwater utility operating budget. I had sent out a recent.
Sorry, excuse me, Sarah.
Oh.
Are you complete with MS4?
I am, thank you, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I had sent out a revised kind of highlights or summary of the stormwater utility budget a couple days ago, based upon numbers that I received from the finance department to include a new full-time employee. So the proposed addition is 1 full-time employee. 60% would come out of stormwater utility, 30% would come out of forestry, and 10% would come from snow removal. I foresee this person, as noted in the summary, our main sweeper operator isn't returning next year. So this person would handle all sweeping responsibilities in the spring, summer, fall, in addition to mowing stormwater ponds during the summer and helping out our urban forestry staff in the summer, because we need some help in that area as well from time to time. And then in the winter time, this person would help assist with snow removal in alleys and downtown parking lots in the future. So there is a need, talking with Kevin Soltis, our street superintendent, our street supervisor, there is a need to assist with snow removal, and especially with a couple of developments coming online in the next year or two. We're going to need some additional staff in the wintertime. But for stormwater budget, over 50% is going to, this person's staff time or his salary is going to be covered out of stormwater utility. So then if you go down, one of the other bigger changes in the stormwater utility budget is to increase line item 53442, which is contracted services. We're looking to increase that by $70,000, up from $130,000. So that would come up to $200,000. And the reason for this increase is to contract out clear cutting of some of our major ponds. As Eric has noted, some of our current facilities have been neglected and haven't been maintained over the years, and they're to the point where they're almost beyond our control at this point. We need to hire a company, which the city has done in the past, to just come in, clear cut, get everything out of there so that we can start managing them again. Okay? So does that make sense? So like, for example, there's ponds that have, 20-inch trees in them, and they're just, it's basically a forest. You don't even really know it's a stormwater facility, a stormwater pond. So for us to pull all of our staff and clean out these ponds, I mean, it would push aside other jobs that we're responsible for daily maintenance. And from what I understand is the company that's come in and done this in the past has done a great job. They're in and out. They can tackle average sized pond within a couple days and move on to the next one. So we're proposing to kind of hit, 15 to 25 ponds in a given year and clean them up. Because we have over 100 ponds within the city that the city maintains. So, we're trying to look at a 5-year cycle hit 20 of them each year for the next 5 years, get them under control, and then we can go ahead and start, mowing them and keeping on top of them at a better rate. And the staff person would help cover, those responsibilities.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It brings up you say 100 ponds that we either own or have responsibility for.
Yeah.
I know that, I think that we've had some discussions about ownership of ponds and the way it's been sort of haphazardly, inconsistently, let me rephrase it, inconsistently done in terms of who owns it and who has responsibilities and even what the requirements are.
Yeah.
Even when the associations are responsible, there's been no standards that they have to meet.
Yep.
So is that going to be part of this?
Yeah, that'll be one of my responsibilities is to develop a policy within the city that we can hold some of these associations, accountable for maintaining their facilities, because it is all one kind of universal stormwater system within the city, and it's not just the city having to take care of their facilities. Some of these developments have to take care of theirs as well to contribute to the overall management of the stormwater. So, whether that's changing the ordinance, looking at that, how we can have some authority and assist and help these developments, maintain their facilities as well as us. So that will be a part of it that I'll be looking at. And then I know for like any new construction, I've been in contact with Michael Johnson, the community development director, getting some wording or something in the permits that are pulled, whether the city looks at taking over all pond maintenance, or like Jim was saying, just getting something in writing that we can, monitor and have some authority, in the future when it is time to maintain them and dredge them out if they're not working properly, to make them have to do it, just some wording or something like that. So all of that will be looked at here in the next year to get policies in place. And then another major thing too, like Jim said, is, figuring out the public ponds from the private ponds, measuring, looking at old records to see how much sediment has built up in them, what levels have to be, do we have to go in there and dredge them, what are the standards of each pond. So it's going to be a lot of work, and the first couple of years is going to be very busy as far as getting all the ponds back to where they should be and we're supposed to be.
I think we have to, I'm glad we're going to be stepping up to take care of our own ponds. We can't really effectively enforce the ponds that we don't own if we're not taking care of our own. So we have to set the standard. I guess that's what it amounts to.
Right.
Good.
I agree. And so to pay for these two kind of major increases within the stormwater utility, one of the ways that we pay for stormwater maintenance is through our stormwater utility fund. It's a quarterly fee that is on a utility bill that residents and businesses pay to help support stormwater facility, improvements or maintenance programs. If you look on the summary sheet, currently we charge $7.50 each quarter for a stormwater utility rate. Some of the other municipalities in the area, like River Falls, charges $12.56. Prescott is at $10. New Richmond is at $13.24. Altoona, Wisconsin is at $9. So we're well below what surrounding communities charge for their stormwater utility rate. And so based upon the additional full-time person and the increase in contractual services, staff is recommending that we up the storm utility fund to $12 a quarter, which would still leave us short of River Falls and New Richmond, but it would support those two changes in the stormwater utility budget. So, and I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but that's what we're proposing, and it's open for discussion. I mean, without going up to that $12, it would limit some of the contractual services that maybe we're looking to do. That would probably be the area that I would recommend cutting, but my recommendation is to bump it up to 12, and let's start tackling this MS4 problem that we've been staring at the face over the last few years and get it taken care of.
Yeah, this has been mentioned over the last couple of years as a coming issue, but now we're putting some dollars to it. How does this affect the total budget?
For stormwater?
Yeah, by increasing stormwater, how does that affect how does that appear in our levy limit?
It doesn't, because it's a utility charge, and so it will
Okay.
not affect our levy limit. Where it would affect is the forestry portion. So the stormwater portion isn't going to affect our levy limit. And as Jim had alluded to, we've talked the last couple of years, since I've been here, should we start increasing that fee? And during those discussions, we said we don't have the plan ready. Let's wait until we have the plan. And so now we are at the point where we have the plan. And so we're making the recommendation for the increase.
When was the last time we increased this?
We have not. We implemented the stormwater fund in 2012, and that when we implemented, it was the $7.50 per quarter. And so if we went from 2012 to 2019, it's a 65-cent per year increase in that fee per quarter.
So before 2012, there was no fee.
There was no fee, correct.
And these
But-
other communities had the fee because they already had the population and needed MS4?
Correct.
Is that,
Correct.
I mean, that's maybe an assumption.
Yeah,
'Cause
for some of the smaller communities, they've had the higher fees just because they're preparing for that when the time comes. You know, like New Richmond is close to 10,000, so they're, you know, putting monies aside to help with, you know, meeting requirements MS4. But yes, like Eau Claire, as you see in the summary, they're up to $23 a quarter for their residents to control their, you know,
Right.
for stormwater utility fund. So, yeah.
And do we think that that's going to be enough, taking us, you know, if we only do an increase every 5 years, say, will this get us into the future, or would it be better to maybe think about a little bit more than that? When I looked at the average of the other, is it 6 communities, it was like right at $50. So, I don't know, something to, you know,
For the year, $50 for the
$50 a year.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So $12.50 would hit that $50 a year. So I just didn't know if we think that that $12 is going to,
We think it will, because the stormwater contracted services for the pond is going to be a 5-year plan.
Okay.
And so then that will go down a little bit. Would we suspect that we would use it for other expenditures? Yes, but so we're pretty confident that we
Okay.
can sustain it for the 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And $7.50 to $12 may not seem like a lot, but I mean, it's a big jump when you're raising
exactly, that's
utilities.
why,
Yeah.
you know, it'd be kind of, if we're going to have to go to $12.50,
Yeah,
rather do
now's
it
it.
now, rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
saying, oh, yeah.
No, I
We had
agree
a
with-
huge increase, now we have to have another.
Yeah, no, I agree with Brenda. It's you know, the reason for the jump is to pay for the new full-time employee as well as upping that contract services for that 5-year plan.
5 years, yep.
Well, after that 5-year plan, we can reassess, maybe back that down to 150, you know, kind of gauge where we're at. But at least this will get us through these first 5 years without having to make
I
any
do
more
like that we're
adjustments.
still, you know, a little bit lower than our neighbors,
Yeah,
so
yep,
it's good.
yep.
I think it's appropriate. We have to take the next step and actually start spending money. So it's the right time to raise it.
So on the second page of the summary, you can just see, you know, last year for the revenues, this is based upon the utility fees. You know, revenue in 2018 was $305,000. If the board decides to move ahead with raising to 12, the proposed revenue would be, you know, $492,960. So I don't know if you want to go through, you know, we attached the budget. I hit kind of the highlights. I don't know if you want to go through each line. It's totally up to you if you have any questions. Of course, this will have to go in front of the Finance Committee and ultimately Council for approval, so you'll have chances to raise some issues at that time as well, if you can't think of any tonight.
Well, I think the key is where are the significant changes?
The one significant change, we had talked about the expenditures. On page 1 of 5 of the budget, there's a transfer in the 2019 column of $100,000. As you can recall, when we started the MS4 grant, we had done a transfer out of this fund to help fund our portion of that grant. And so we're anticipating there will be $100,000 left in that fund when we're done with this grant process. And so we'll be transferring that back into the stormwater utility.
I'm glad you'll be there to explain that.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, collection system maintenance is a significant
Yep.
increase.
So that's in relation to the contracted services. Item 53, or line item 53442 is described as stormwater projects.
Okay.
That's the
So
contractual
that's where
services.
that's going.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the 130 to 200,000 jump.
Yep.
Everything else is fairly similar. We had to slide in some monies for education, for training, staff training. We don't have anybody on staff that is licensed to take illicit discharge samples, so we'll have to send someone to school, preferably the new employee or Chad Christensen, who kind of does some of our stormwater utility work right now. But other than that, I mean, everything else is fairly similar from last year's budget.
What, one of the things that I've seen other places and haven't seen here yet is the communication to the cities, to the citizens about the responsibilities, like not dumping their leaves in the gutter, and which I see, I can name streets
Yeah.
where that's a gross,
Yeah.
gross.
Well, it's funny you say that, 'cause I
Violation.
think as part of the grant, we actually just received some door hangers that specifically say, don't blow your grass out on the street, don't, rake your leaves out into the gutter, that type of thing, that we can go around to neighborhoods and start hanging and educating the public on, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And, I try and just get the public educated with the new MS4 standards and what it means to have good quality stormwater, especially being so close to the river. It's a great asset for the city, and we don't want to pollute it in any way, or we want to keep it as clean as possible because it's vital to the community.
Has anyone given any thought to maybe working with some of the schools and getting the kids involved?
Yep.
We did that we have done that in the spring before Michael came.
Okay. I remember, I think it was maybe at least 10 years ago, maybe longer, but, and I don't know if it was high school or junior high, probably junior high, we had stencils that they went and painted at the
Catch basins.
Yes.
Yep.
And it says, no, it had no poison, drains to river.
Yeah.
And I think that was really beneficial.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people think that goes into
Onto the treatment plant, right, exactly. Yeah, I know it's kind of that's one of those projects that's always on the back burner if there's a Boy Scouts group or a Girl Scouts group or a community organization that wants to do some volunteer work. That's something that we can always have them do it meets the MS4 standards and helps us out. So,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
What kind of communication do we have with, there are a ton of lawn maintenance companies in the city. What kind of communication do we have or education do we have for them?
I don't believe we have any communication with them at this point. But when we received the plan, I think, drafting a letter from the city, just kind of informing them of what we're facing as a city as far as meeting the phosphorus and sediment levels in the ponds, and just having them help us out in managing the stormwater system by not, like you said, blowing their grass clippings out on the road. So are they all going to stop doing it? No, but at least maybe a couple will, which will help us out. So I think that would be very appropriate to do, contacting the area.
Yeah. Do we have a list? Are they licensed? I don't think they are they? They just do it, right?
I don't know. Possibly. No, we go through the phone books.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Jim.
Our guys on the streets, they've stopped several of them. Kevin can tell you. I mean, if they are doing something
Yeah.
like that, they will let them know.
Excellent.
That's on top of it.
I mean, if there's no other questions or anything, I mean, you could, I guess staff is just recommending approving the stormwater utility budget as proposed and forwarding it on to is it Finance Committee that sees it next, or Council?
Council with this one.
Council.
Well, and it would be contingent on the Finance Committee approving the additional public service worker.
Okay.
Is-
So I would move to approve that, right?
Go ahead.
So I'd move to approve the budget as proposed by the staff.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
When is that, the Finance Council meeting on the
They are meeting a week from Monday,
October 8th,
Yep, October 8th,
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
When is that?
The Finance Committee is meeting on October 8th, it's a Monday, at 3 o'clock regarding the personnel budgets
Okay.
and
Any
proposals.
staff proposals goes to the Finance Committee.
And council's welcome also.
Right, let's just getting that on my calendar.
I will be out of town on that date, so.
You finance?
On the 8th, yeah. I'm not on finance. So just going to be there to cheer. All right, item 2, and thank you. You're welcome to stay.
Thank
but-
you, Eric.
There you go.
Have fun golfing.
The next item,
Um,
standard operations procedure,
yeah, so
non-compliance matters.
upon coming to the city, you know, there was, to be consistent with all residents within the city of Hudson in concerns to non-compliance issues and enforcement, staff, along with the help of Sarah, developed the standard operating procedures on how we're going to handle non-compliance issues moving forward. It's fairly similar to what we've done in the past, but now it's on paper. You know, it gives staff, non-compliance officer, a set of guidelines to follow. We've been in work with Chief Willems on this as well, and him and I have had a chance, along with Debbie, to sit down and go over kind of our current procedures and make some adjustments to work with the residents a little more, so that we don't put people in situations where, you know, they're not happy with the level of services that we're providing. On the other hand, we also got to be have the ability to enforce properties that are being in non-compliance. So we developed the standard operating procedures for staff to follow, along with a sample letter that residents will receive from staff specific to their non-compliance issue. Like I said, this was drafted basically to just be consistent for all residents and all non-compliance matters within the city of Hudson.
I'd recommend that there be a check sheet that when we're doing this kind of thing, because it's pretty sensitive, is that, yep, done on this date and with some reference to it. I'm not, you know, I would assume you'd start a file.
Yep, so there's a case file that started at the police department.
Okay.
Whenever a non-compliance issue comes in, the non-compliance officer starts a case file, goes out and takes a photo of the nuisance, sends out the letter, it's added to the case. And like I said, this is all in the standard operating procedure, what the ordinance officer will do, the non-compliance officer. So I don't know if you want to touch on anything,
Well, I just,
Sarah?
I think that we potentially could have issues where in the past, we were surprising residents, kind of just like shocking them by showing up at their property and doing work. Doesn't happen all the time, because some of these landlords are, they might live in Colorado and they know the drill, but people who are actually owner-occupied homes, they might not understand, and it had potential to shock the residents, and I don't think that's our intent. I mean, these are the citizens of Hudson. So the letter that gets sent was updated, and I think it turned out really good. I think it clearly explains now the process that they can expect if they do get workers that are going to come. But what we've added is a step that they have an opportunity to do their own work and then call the compliance officer and say, I've done my work, come check it out, make sure I'm now in compliance. And then a meeting can be scheduled, and they can either agree that the work is done well, or that they need to do more, or if it's, if they want the Public Works Department to come and do that work. So it just added a step in there to soften the whole process, I think, and I think it turned out really well. So I'm pleased with the work that staff did to get this procedure updated and implemented.
Okay, I have two questions. One, when I read through it, I said, okay, who's the non-compliance officer? What's my reference for that? There, it doesn't say that he's part of the Hudson Police Department, so, or he or she. So
Well, the letter comes from the compliance officer.
Right, I'm reading our procedure, though. Procedure's not clear.
Oh.
And that's, I'm big on the procedures being very, very well understood and accessible. So that's my next question, is where does this reside?
I don't know that it's necessary, because if you put this as a policy, you wouldn't need to have the name on here. You wouldn't want the name on the policy.
No, but it should be the name of the organization, the Hudson Police Department, for example.
I see.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
So we could just add, under procedures, non-compliant staff within the Hudson Police Department
Okay.
will respond to inquiries.
Right.
Okay.
And then where do we file, or where do procedures reside?
It could go to council. It could be adapted as a policy, I guess. That's kind of what we're thinking.
But you're just saying to have it accessible, like on our website or something for...
Somehow it needs to be, we need to be able to access that information.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's part of our ordinances, or
Well, Jeff, the chief
Maybe
is
Devin-
planning on taking it back to safety
okay.
once it went here.
Okay.
Go back there.
And then bring it back forward.
Yes, and that's-
Yep.
Okay, well, my question I'll still ask that question. Where is this going to be, so that anybody in the city can find out what it is? So, that's- and then
I think the natural place would be to post it on our website somewhere to make it accessible for the public to see our procedure on it.
Where are other SOPs kept?
This- This may be our first, I don't know. There must
No,
be-
we
there has to be.
have other SOPs, right?
There's things, I mean, there's stuff in there. I don't know that they're actually called that. But,
I mean, this
That's
is-
what I'm here for.
we'll look into that.
Yeah, okay, we can, I think it's a great idea. I love procedures as well, but with Jim, they need a home, and one home, and everyone needs to know where that is.
Yep.
And then it's a great way to train new employees, or, I mean, when
Yeah.
it makes everything better, because knowledge no longer resides with people, it resides in a policy procedure book.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Motion to refer to safety or just refer?
Yeah, if you're happy with the documents, entertain a motion with the changes noted by the board to, approve the documents and forward them to public safety for their review. And then ultimately it would go to council for their review as well.
I will move to send this to public safety and with the changes.
Right, with the stipulations that we discussed, yeah.
Mhm.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Very good.
Perfect.
This is nice. Okay, Public Works budget.
All right. Any word from Paul?
Did you want to do maybe urban forestry before maybe Paula come in on the skills here?
Let me,
What do you think, Jim?
let me text him and see.
It's a short one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that traffic must have really been bad.
Yeah, because I got this message at 5:13.
45 minutes. And counting.
It's down to one lane.
This is a bad accident.
Oh, no.
Okay. We'll keep plugging along then.
But shall we move to the forestry budget then? So I think it's very important that
Yeah, so the shade tree control budget, within the summary, you know, with Emerald Ash Borer being, now that Emerald Ash Borer is here, some of the changes within the budget reflect the management of the bug. You know, if you look at the shade tree control budget itself, there's not a lot of line items. If you take out the personnel services, there's only 6 line items that staff can really manipulate and change and add and take away from. The first line item was the Emerald Ash Borer, which we increased $4,000 from 10 to 14. You know, this is going to help pay for chemicals that we treat ash trees with, along with removing tree-specific ash trees that have been infested. So to make up for that, you know, we reduced other contractual services by a couple $1,000s down to $25,000. And these services are, you know, not every tree that we hire out is an ash tree. So there's still maple trees, lindens, oaks that fail within the city that we have to hire out. You know, our staff can handle, you know, typically in a range from, you know, anything up to about 20 inches, 22 inches is probably the max that we feel safe and comfortable handling within the city. Anything beyond that, that's when we want to start hiring out contractors just for liability reasons. So that would come out of that line item. And then below, other operating supplies, you know, landscape materials, small tools, no change on those line items.
Can I ask a question about the buckthorn removal?
Yeah.
Is that the goats, or is that part of the park?
Nope. So that'll be the goals, and that'll come out of the parks operating budget, and that is in there for next year.
And what do they think about that?
The goats?
The parks.
They were more than happy to host it within their budget. So.
Oh, it's moving over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. Good.
So they approved the monies to keep that program running up in 2019.
Where are our other buckthorn problems? Like, where are they physically located?
Kevin, do you know kind of where they're?
It's
or Ken?
mostly in the bluff forest.
Burkmose Park, Prospect Parks, where we can't.
There's some up at White Camp along the edge there that can take.
Coombs Hill area.
Queens Hill area.
Someone donated to have that removed.
It's in all of our parks.
Hmm.
But it's hard for us to control it because of the way it's spread.
It's tough stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So as part of the urban forestry grant, you know, not urban forestry grant, shade tree control budget, we will be applying for another urban forestry grant in 2019 from the DNR to help assist with Emerald Ash Borer management. In fact, I'm just finishing it up tomorrow, and I'll submit it on Monday. But we're also going to put some monies in there for education and outreach, continuing the tree trek that's been very successful. Ken's been a part of that, helping stock our gravel bed, paying for chemicals, helping with developing a urban forestry management plan, and also rewriting the tree ordinance, updating the tree ordinance as well. So those are kind of some items that'll be included in that grant. So this, that will help supplement, if we get it, it will help supplement our shade tree control budget. So hopefully we can get another, we've been very successful in the past in receiving that grant, so hopefully we have continued good luck.
So you expect or are looking for a grant?
Yep. And it's a 50-50 match. So we're requesting $50,000. 25 would have to be supplemented through this budget, which is more than, there's more than enough to cover that expense.
That's great.
Yep. So. You came down here, Ken, you want to add anything?
No, not really.
Just, you might get a little feedback on the buckthorn removal. We're really not taking it out of the budget, we're just moving it from this budget to somewhere else, is that correct?
It was always in the parks budget.
Okay.
It was paid out, last year it was paid out of community subsidies.
That's right.
And from what I understand, it belongs in the parks budget for operating expenses.
Right.
So the money to continue the program, the $10,000 to continue the program, is in the parks operating budget. It has been proposed.
Okay.
So that'll come to council for approval as well. Yep.
Jim, if it's all right, I'll just mention that we had a great discussion at the last Urban Forestry Board meeting about this budget, and Mike's done a great job of keeping the board informed. I would also, with the arrival of Emerald Ash Borer, remind you that we have revised reorganized the website, some very well-organized, accessible information there. Mike and I and private arborist from Save a Tree did a community access half-hour show on Emerald Ash Borer. I think Devin is considering using it as a training for the staff, as it answers many of the questions that residents are going to ask us. And I'll just mention in parting that the October 13th, Saturday, October 13th, is our annual fall outplanting from the gravel bed, starting at 9 o'clock at the West Garage. So you're all welcome. Thanks.
Paul says he's still 4 miles out and nothing is moving. He apologizes.
Sometimes you can't help it.
Yeah.
No. So if there's no further questions, entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented.
I so move.
I will second.
Moved and seconded to approve the shade tree control budget. Is that the correct name for it? Is that,
It is.
or is it urban forest operating budget?
It's shade tree control budget. You were correct the first time.
Okay. As presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Next. Looks like we can't dodge Public Works anymore.
No. Save the biggest one for last. So I don't know how you've done this in the past. It's quite a rather robust budget. I don't know if you want to go through kind of each line item or cover the kind of the summary that I put together, and then maybe entertain any questions as you flip through it. So I'll just kind of start.
I think starting with the summary, the
Yeah.
key issues is mostly what we're going to be focusing on.
Yeah. So as part of the summary, part-time personnel, no change from 2018. We house or we employ 30 to 32 part-time staff. These include, mowers, gardeners, people to manage the boat launch, watering, lifeguards are included in that, a shade tree laborer. And then in the wintertime, we employ people to attend the ice rink, warming house in Burton Park, and snow shoveling. So we're carrying over that same amount of staff. It seems to work well with what Kevin needs throughout the summer and winter months, so no changes there.
What snow shoveling, is that at the ice rink, for example, or is that in else all over the city.
That's all of our downtown sidewalks, near parking lots, steps.
Making sure the,
6th Street Hill, 6th Street steps that come
Okay.
down from
Okay.
that part that way. Yeah, there's a lot of smaller areas that we still have to cover and comply with our snow
Right.
shoveling policy.
sidewalk at intersections, is that our responsibility, keeping, you can get it off the, get it off the slope, but then you've got 2 feet of foot-high slush to get through. Is that who?
That's, like, are you talking 2nd Street or?
Yeah, that's a good example, but anyway.
That's all the store owners, business owners downtown. They have to shovel their, in front of their businesses.
Right, right. But
And they
the,
take care of the corners. And then we do snow removal downtown, which
Mhm.
pretty much cleans everything out.
okay, thanks.
Yeah. You know, as we work through the budget, at City Hall, other professional services was increased, $4,000 to cover annual expenses related to HVAC, pest control, elevator maintenance, generator maintenance, and trans alarm. Under the City Hall budget as well, we were able to reduce electric and gas 3,000, and this was a reflection upon expenditures in 2016 and 2017, basically falling more in line with what we were actually spending in that line item. We were, you know, roughly $3,000 over in 2016 and 2017, so I feel comfortable scaling that back to kind of offset that $4,000 increase above.
A question on the HVAC. It's,
Yep.
My sense is that we've been having increasing issues or increasing expenditures for HVACs, and I assume that's, well, all the city buildings, but this one in particular.
Heating an area. I think it's and correct me if I'm wrong, Deb, there's a quarterly inspection that we do. Is that correct? That Honeywell will come in and inspect our equipment to make sure it's operating efficiently and how it should be. And then they make any necessary, repairs at that time. But I don't, yeah, I don't.
Okay, so this
Most
is,
of all of our equipment is covered under the contract, so any repairs that are done are usually under the contract. But as things get older, obviously they break down more, so there's more parts that have to be replaced. So it's pretty specific as to what's covered and what's not, but it's been, knock on wood, pretty good.
I guess the question is this pretty much a flat line budget on that then?
Yeah.
Without looking at,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
thanks.
If you move down to the west garage, utilities and gas, so we're recommending to increase it $3,000 because we didn't budget anything in 2016, we didn't budget anything in 2017, and I don't believe we budgeted anything in 2018 as well. But our typical main source of heat for that building has been used oil in the past. And for whatever reason, it could be any number of reasons, we're not getting the amount of used oil that we used to get in years past. Whether that's, people just aren't changing their oil at home anymore, or they're taking it to the dealer to change it, but we're just not getting enough oil to supply heating that building. So in return, we're only able to heat it for a month, maybe 2 out of the winter season, and then we have to turn on the gas to heat the buildings. We keep that one at 45 degrees.
Somewhere between
Yeah.
5 and 50.
Yeah, 45 and 50. We house snow equipment in there and that kind of thing, trucks. So we have to turn the gas on, and of course we have to pay for the gas, and nothing's been budgeted for the gas. So it's just kind of keep catching up with some of the overages in the budget that we've had in the past, and that's why I added that there.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
Is there any way to educate the public that they could drop off their gas or their oil?
Their oil?
We have, it's always been in the St. Croix County recycling, when you get the spreadsheet of where you can drop off certain things, it's in every year. We have flyers, it's on the city website. It worked well for How many years have we had that burner?
I think we put the new ones in 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
But we have oil burning at the east and the west garage, so both garages are heated with oil.
We've spent a lot more getting them cleaned and getting them maintained than what they're kind of
Saving? Hmm.
Don't you agree? Kind of it's really expensive.
They're a very costly piece of equipment to run. The burners have to be cleaned and maintained every year. And you figure about $1,500 a piece to have those cleaned. And what maintenance needs to be done on the burner itself. We have 4 of those machines to heat.
So we will not be using them at all anymore?
No, that's our main source of heat.
Okay.
We do have our gas furnaces there, but they're more of a supplement type heat. We rely on our oil burners to heat the shop.
Okay.
The only time that we do turn the gas on is when we're out of oil.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, is there anybody that's looked at the cost of the maintenance compared to what it would cost for gas to heat that? But I mean,
the problem is when those furnaces were installed, all of our gas furnaces throughout all the buildings were all older and were really efficient. And we have now replaced most of our gas furnaces, but the problem is without the oil burners helping
supplementing the heat.
I think that our gas bill for the natural gas would really increase
Okay.
quite a bit.
Okay. So then it makes sense to, like you said, stick that $1,500
Sure.
into maintaining the.
I'm just trying to think of
Yeah, I was
sources
thinking
for
the same
used
thing.
oil, because
Yeah.
it's still out there. What about contacting, like, Fleet Farm or people that
big-
change oil?
Most of the companies that do change oil now use their own
Yeah.
waste oil to heat their buildings too. And if they do have extra, they sell it back to another company, which will sell it to other people. And I have looked into buying oil, but it's not, I want to say last year it was like $1.10 a gallon.
Hmm.
So it's,
Yeah.
Okay,
Whether you pay for oil or gas at that point.
thank you.
Turning the page, street maintenance. Other contracted services, we reduced that $7,300 to reflect expenditures. We just weren't using the allotted amount in 2016 and 2017, so we were able to reduce that. Motor fuels, per our finance director, she says we're at our limit right now for 2018, so she recommended increasing that $14,000 to cover expenses in 2019. And she does that for every department. She looks at, well, you could probably explain what you do with that.
I look at the average usage over the last 3 years, and then I look and try to predict by looking online at what the cost of unleaded and diesel will be for next year. And so what I'm using is $3 for unlead and then $3.25 for diesel. So.
Roadway signs and supplies. I increased that $7,000 to cover expenses related to street painting. I don't know if you recall, but last fall, the Public Works Department purchased a piece of equipment to make painting operations more efficient. It's a little pusher cart. Okay. I don't know if you see them out and about, but it's actually, our staff can sit on it and paint, and they can cover a lot of ground. And so this year was kind of the first full year that we've had that piece of equipment, and they're able to go through a lot more paint, which is good because they can cover more of the town. But it's bad because, the budget only allowed us to purchase so much paint. You know, we had to shut them down here a couple weeks ago, and there's still a good month of painting left to do. And it's still needed out there. So anyway, so next year, you know, that's why I increased it $7,000 to basically bring them through the whole season painting. You know, they're able to get through approximately half a town, painting crosswalks and painting curbs. So that would put, you know, painting the whole city on kind of like a 2-year cycle. And then with painting, you know, we try to touch up all the crosswalks in the school districts on the safe routes to schools. Those are an annual thing that we do, that we hit, just for, you know, safety of the kids going to and from school, on top of all the, you know, the yellow curbs. And, you know, you could paint crosswalks, you could add crosswalks at every intersection, but, you know, there's only so much time and resources to do that. So that's why I recommended that. So I don't know if you want any questions.
I think that's a good idea. Some of the things I know about that the Hudson School District is looking at a Safe Routes to School program.
Yeah.
They're already well into the planning on that, and so there could be some, I would expect to see some new lines that need to be painted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as well as the bike ped committee is looking at just auditing all of our sidewalks and for safety and where improvements are needed, and that hopefully some of it's just paint.
Yeah.
But that's about as cheap as we can do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea.
It just reaffirms that, you know, the purchase of that piece of equipment was a wise decision. It has dramatically increased the efficiency of the crew. So I mean, that was a very good purchase for the city. They're able to cover a lot of ground compared to what they used to be able to cover. So, yep, they do all the parking lots downtown, public parking lots, striping downtown parking stalls. So, it's a handy piece of equipment. It's used every day, pretty much all summer long. So,
really, how much do you think we spend in total painting?
We can look.
Hey, if you don't, if
Deb can look at it.
labor and paint.
Oh, labor and who?
It sounds like it's a lot.
Well, Kevin, how many hours a week do you think?
Usually, you can figure with radius, you can plan on 32 hours a week, 2 guys, and
Starting kind of June.
Well, if they're coding it properly, they're at 27,000.
I can tell you how many feet of line, lineal feet of line that they paint every day, how much paint they're putting down.
Oh.
Kevin, can you stand at the podium?
Or just have a seat next to Sarah.
Sure.
With the new paint machine that we have acquired now, that machine has a computer on it which will basically log every lineal foot of paint that they put down, how much paint they're putting down. It tracks every day. So some days, if they're just doing crosswalks and a lot of stenciling or something like that, it'll decrease in their lineal feet, but it'll still keep track of how many gallons of paint. And we looked at it the other day, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but like some days they were putting down 15 gallons of paint, other days they were only doing 5, 6, and that, you know, that's when they're in a smaller area or.
Yeah.
But the piece of equipment that we do have has changed our way of doing things tremendously.
Excellent.
Do we buy paint by the gallon or by the 5
It's by the
pail?
gallon. We buy it by the gallon. It comes in a 5-gallon pail, but we're priced out as per gallon.
Cool.
We get that locally.
Yep.
Mike had a good suggestion, Kevin. Why don't you join us at the table for this discussion,
Yeah,
particularly?
oh.
That's
It's like about 10 to 12,000 that I can see say right now?
About 10 to 12,000 in paint alone. Okay, paint.
Would we save money if, I mean, do the curb and street crosswalks need it every year, or would it be saving to do every 3 years, a 3-year cycle?
This is something that has to be done every year.
Is it?
Yes.
I would have said maybe 8 years ago we could have gotten by, but the paint quality has gone down.
Really?
Well, we're using a water-based paint instead of an epoxy paint. Epoxy paint. When we do new street projects like Hanley and like what we've done on Vine, that's all epoxy painted. But that will usually that'll extend out to 5 years before that has to be repainted again. But it depends on the traffic and.
Is and is that tracked in our GIS program, or like, so you, I mean, or you just know in your head what paint is where and when it got done last?
Well, the thing is like with the new machine that we have, they can track everything. They can put in where they were, the dates. Like I say, and it prints out a spreadsheet, so we know what we've done daily.
And what kind of paint was used?
Mm-hmm. Whether it's yellow.
So that's
white.
kept track of in that particular machine, not as part of our bigger system
Right.
tracking stuff. Okay.
Right.
Will the new machine not paint epoxy, or do we choose to not?
The problem with the epoxy is the cleanup with it. That's why we use a water base.
Right, yeah, it's tougher stuff to handle for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving along, so we're not here till 8:30. Bituminous mixes, we had a shortage this year in the budget, and this is kind of related to the amount of spray patching that we're having to do. You know, we purchased a spray patch machine a couple of years ago for the city of Hudson, and you know, it's a good thing to have, but you got to also have the materials to go out and spray patch. And this year we ran into a situation, you know, where we're over budget by, you know, $5,000 roughly. So I'm looking to increase $7,000 or $8,000, I'm sorry, to help offset that overage that we had this year. So, and that's kind of in relation to, you know, the manpower. You know, we have a couple of guys on the crew that go out and spray patch now, and they're able to cover a lot more ground, where in years past it was just one person. So, you know, it's funny because ever since we've got the machine, the amount of pothole calls that the city's received has gone dramatically down. We receive maybe 1 or 2 a month now compared to how many a week. So, I mean, the machine itself is working. You just don't want to get into a situation like now. You know, we could be out spray patching right now and filling potholes, but because we're over budget by, you know, $7,900, it's like, do we just stop patching potholes in the city? Which I don't think is a really good practice either, especially with the winter months coming up. So that's kind of an increase to reflect that overage that we've had this year. Street signs and markings, sign contingency. This was put into the budget last year at $15,000 to help fund, you know, bigger sign projects that would come across, specifically Public Safety Committee. It wasn't used this year, so I'm looking to reduce that back down to the original $1,000 from $15,000.
So we didn't have any large projects, any sign,
You know,
or,
like the ped crossings with
right,
the
we
solar.
The solars,
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
Okay.
any requests that came across, we were able to absorb it into the Public Works operating budget, you know, sign budget.
Okay.
You know, and then in moving forward, you know, as we do street reconstruction projects, I would just like to add that on as a contingency onto the street project, that we could fund those, you know, pedestrian crossing signs in with the project itself, so we don't have to put it in
Sure,
operating budget. So I think
That
that'd be a
makes
better
sense.
practice. And then lastly, you know, in the Public Works budget, it's just kind of noted that, you know, we're going to apply for the DNR grant matching matching grant for $25,000. So overall, you know, not including the personnel services, the total operating budget increased 2.4%. If we put in the 30% forestry position and 10% snow removal position, it came up to 3% increase with that, helping fund that full-time person. So, yeah, fairly, I'm really happy with that number.
Were you given any kind of guidelines?
Nope.
Brenda, is there some general concerns that I know the mayor usually has?
I asked her to go up, if I could go up to like 20%, but she said no. No.
The guideline was to make sure that you're asking for what you need. We didn't want the council to not be aware of items that the department heads felt they needed. So we didn't hold them to 2% or 1.5% because we felt that council should be aware of what departments needed.
And I'm realistic. You know, I'm not going to, I know it's, you know, you're not going to raise a budget by 18% and get everything, so why waste my time? Why waste your time? Let's do something that's realistic. And I feel like 3% is fair and gets us what we need for next year. So, moving on, First Street building. Other professional services. So do you know the First Street building is the police and library building? The Public Works manages that building. We increased $4,000. The other professional services to clean windows and power wash the exterior of the building. And we were able to kind of offset that raise with decreasing the gas and utilities, $4,500, and this was also to reflect expenditures in 2016 and 2017, be more in line with what we're actually spending down there. So kind of an offsetting cost there.
Why would that? Why would it be lower? Natural gas prices down?
They're not, but we were over budgeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So
The last couple of years, didn't we, Brenda? The last couple of years.
that's pretty much it.
Good.
So I don't know if you have any questions, or like I said, I mean, this is going to come in front of the both of you again at City Council. So if you do come up with questions or concerns between now and then, be sure to note them and write them down and bring them up at that point in time.
And move.
Second.
All in favor?
Shortcut.
Aye.
that. Aye.
Approve the public works operating budget as suggested. I'm going to recommend to Paul DeZiel that he sit down with you and take an hour or so and to go over this, and so he's got a.
Yeah, be more than happy to.
Yeah.
Yep, more than happy to.
So, unfortunately, I know he feels badly that he's not here. The next final budget item, capital improvements
Yes.
plan.
So I think I'm just gonna, before we get into the summary of the plan, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, Brenda, but can you just kind of explain the process with the CIP funding? You know, Brenda has worked closely with Kevin, Deb, and myself to kind of help formulate the plan that we have in front of you tonight, and she can maybe touch base on that while I go get a drink of water.
Sure. As you know, the city does capital project bonding every other year. And so in 2019, we'll be going out for bonding. And so in anticipation for that, we look at our 2019, 2020 projects, look and see what the effects of those projects will have on that bonding to see how it fits in to our mill rate, into our levy. And when we do that, I think it's important that we look at not only 19 and 20, but to look and see what's on the horizon. And so that's why we do a 5-year plan, just so that we're anticipating what is coming up in the future. And so right now we're looking at the 19 and 20 capital projects. It'd be our anticipation that we'd bring not only the public works projects that we're talking about tonight, but other capital projects in the city for 19 and 20 to the council on October 22nd for you to review, and then at that time look at the impact of that bonding. And if the council approves it, then we would go out and begin our bonding cycle to issue bonds in January.
Okay. So we developed just a summary of the 2019 projects, capital improvement projects, followed by capital projects in 2020. In 2019, as part of Public Works, the equipment, and Kevin and I, me being fairly new to this process, these items were actually already in a capital improvement plan from years past. So we're just kind of carrying them forward. But I got together with Kevin. We went through all the equipment that we have within the city, kind of listened to his plan, his vision, express some of the needs of the department moving forward. And these items here are a reflection upon mine and his discussion. A couple of 3/4 ton pickups, a new F550 cabin chassis for our new cement truck, our a truck that houses all of our cement materials, forms, that kind of thing. I don't know. So Kevin has a plan. I think it's best if he maybe goes through it, other than besides me.
Okay. Well, the cement truck that we currently have now, we're going to keep that truck. And the truck that we use for our chip truck, which has an enclosed box on it, we're going to take the box off of that truck and put it onto our current cement truck. And then the box that we have on the flatbed that we have on our current cement truck, we're going to put onto our new cement truck.
Repurposing.
Yep.
They're repurposing equipment
Yep.
to save monies, basically.
Sure.
That's good.
Okay. And then, we'll be able to sell pieces of equipment to help offset, of course, some of the expenditures. And then lastly, we're requesting a tandem axle plow truck to replace a 2006 Mack tandem. And, was speaking with Kevin, and it's a very good practice, and the city of Hudson has been very fortunate to follow this practice. I've been a part of 2 other municipalities that haven't followed this practice. There's a range when you get a piece of equipment, especially a big piece of equipment, and typically try to turn it over in that 10 to 12 year range, because you get the best value on a trade-in or sale. And then after that, kind of the 12 to 15 year range, that's when you really start to see the maintenance issues pop up on it. And I've been a part of that in 2 different communities where they've held on to equipment too long, and you end up paying more in maintenance costs than what the piece of equipment is worth. Well, then you're stuck with it, So it's a good practice to kind of turn that equipment over, and that's why we have this request in there, because it is a 2006 Mack. It'll be 13 years old next year, so we're looking to turn it over next year. And as you can see, we're still able to get a portion, fairly good money for it in return, $40,000. If you move down to streets and infrastructure, the big one on there, of course, is the Vine Street reconstruction. As you're probably aware, some of that will be funded through the LRIP grant, along with some funding that has been able to shift over from...
When we did the bond issuance for the 2017, 2018 capital projects, at that time we thought we'd be doing Vine Street this year, 2018. And then the council made the decision to move up Handley and move back Vine Street because of the construction in front of the high school. And so there are bond funds that we'll be utilizing from those 15 bonds for Vine Street.
So that's the 691,000, or is that the...
486,785 of that is for the LRIP grant, and 205,000 is from the bond funds in 15.
Okay.
So yeah, it is the 691. It's the 2 of them together, Jim.
Okay.
Added together. Yep.
Oh, that's what that's 600.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. Yep, that's the grant and the carried over bond funds. Moving along, you know, money in the CIP for the Cooley Road retaining wall reconstruction for next year. You know, continue street maintenance program, crack filling, seal coating, flex patch. I'm going to implement a sidewalk replacement program next year, focusing kind of on, you know, downtown historic district. In my short time here, I've received a number of phone calls from people with trip hazards, that kind of thing, and it's time to put a sidewalk replacement program in place. You know, and the good thing about that is, you know, we're able to assess the property owners a portion of that, so that $75,000 can, you know, extend out to, you know, 125, 150,000, depends upon where we do the sidewalk reconstructions. So that's a good thing. That's very needed, especially with all the pedestrian traffic that we have in the city. Last two on that in streets and infrastructure is to continue the stage line road street lighting replacement. There's 47 lights remaining to be replaced out there. So that's at $105,000. And then lastly is the Hagen Street Trail reconstruction.
I'm remembering the stagecoach discussion on that lighting. Is it excessive as it stands? Do we have more lights than are necessary? And I don't have an opinion. I just remember there was a discussion over the last maybe a year or two ago. Did that come up in any?
I haven't. No, that's the first that I've heard of it. But of course,
I'm not normally in favor of reducing lighting, but the point was raised, and I just want you to be. You need to be aware of that.
Okay, going forward.
So you get blindsided in the council meeting.
Yep.
Well, you can talk. We can talk about that.
Yep. We'll talk about that. But I'm sure, you know, I'm hopeful that when they installed that road and put that lighting in, there is an engineering study done to, you know, give the appropriate amount of lighting for that street. So, I mean, we're just replacing the current lights that are there.
We did the street lighting replacement program and went into that street lighting, the grid system, so we have control over dimming them, and I know Dick does, you know, works on that. So you can give a little overview on that, but
I'll look into that.
They have reduced the lighting considerably up there, actually. And he can give you reports on that too, so maybe future meeting.
Yep. And then if you jump down to the buildings, first and foremost is carpet replacement and painting of City Hall. Window replacement of the second floor. We did third floor this year.
The window replacement we started last year, and we did third floor, and this year we are doing the basement, first floor. And we had anticipated we were going to do second floor this year, but when we started to go out for quotes on or bids on the project, we didn't have enough money for that. We only had $80,000 that we had budgeted, and so we made the decision to do the basement or first floor. And so next year we are pretty confident in that price of $230,000.
Okay. And then the last item you see on there, of course, is the fire station at Ward Avenue. So total CIP projects proposed for 2019 is $9,400,700.
I just have a couple questions on those windows. I'm seeing that on most of these line items, the bonds and notes number equals the cost. So there's $10,000.
Yep. It is the quote that came in this year was $220,000, and so I made a quick change.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
so
no, enough said.
Yep.
Okay, and then so where's the revenue when we sell an item? Where does that revenue show up on the budget?
You are seeing it under equipment, that $45,500. That is anticipation of selling some public works equipment. And so then that brings down what we need to finance.
So the $5,000 in the other funding column is what we think we're going to get for that piece of equipment?
Correct. For that 550 cab and chassis? Is that the 5,000?
The number 21, whatever that is.
The old chipper truck, correct?
Huh?
Yes.
Yep.
So there's no revenue in the line above that for selling number 39?
As far as that truck would go, it's a 1999, there's not, if we get
If we-
$500
Wait,
out of that truck.
I have one of those too. So
So it's just one of those things that we're not anticipating.
any, yeah,
Substantial
significant,
amount
right,
back
gotcha.
on.
Okay. Just wanted to see if there
Yeah.
was an oversight or,
Yeah. All right.
You see, I'm a little surprised that the Cooley Road retaining wall, that seems light, but I can't update me on
Yeah,
where we're at.
so we had, the engineering costs came back, and it came back at 58,000
Right.
for a rough kind of estimate on the cost to replace that wall. The engineering firm suggested that we hold off on doing the project until next spring, just because we're too late into the season where contractors are so busy wrapping up other projects, we wouldn't get good pricing back on a bid. And then it also takes time to manufacture the blocking that they recommend putting up there. So the 60,000 would fall within kind of what they suggest would cost to repair that wall.
Okay.
Yep.
And I want to clarify with you that the 9.4 million, those are just the projects that you're looking at the Public Works level. We have such things as IT, capital projects, some fire equipment, some police equipment, and so you're not seeing the full picture here.
But they will.
The council will see it on the 21st.
Yep. Okay. So flipping to 2020, starting up at the top, Public Works equipment, a skid steer, and this would be primarily for using in the ponds as we, get them cleaned up and get them into operation, back into operation. A lot of our ponds are, there's slopes and ditches leading down to the pond, so the skid steer would have tracks on it, which would hug the ditch, and we have a big brush hog on the front of it that we can mount to it that we can mow a lot of our ponds without having to slide down. So we're requesting that, updating our wood chipper, replacing a lawnmower for the Parks Department, and then the last piece of equipment there is purchasing a new loader with a plow wing combination. And the reason why we're requesting this is as a couple of the newer developments come online, we're going to need another piece of plow equipment to handle these developments, especially with the amount of cul-de-sacs that have been placed in the developments. The loader is the main piece of equipment that we use to plow cul-de-sacs, just because of the turning radius that it has. The crew can do it very efficiently with a loader. The visibility is great, so we're looking to purchase a piece of equipment to help us, plow some of these newer developments that are going to be coming online.
When you first started saying it, my thought was that, do we use that to put the snow in the middle of the cul-de-sac in the circle, or?
Well, I think Kevin can touch base because he operates one of our current loaders and he plows a lot of our cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, basically, we put 90% of the snow in the center of the cul-de-sacs, and then on our last pass out, we'll place the remaining to the driveways. But it's the most efficient and the easiest way to clean them up.
So moving on, streets and infrastructure, industrial street reconstruction, that has been on the CIP list, and I think our previous engineer had identified that street as a need to do some reconstruction on, and all the previous CIP plans, it's been on there. Continuation of street maintenance program and continuation of sidewalk, curb and gutter, and those two, you're aware that those are kind of yearly, annual expenses that we have each and every year to do, basically just to maintain our roads, and keep them as nice a shape as possible for the longest time before we had to do a full reconstruct. Buildings, a continuation of replacing the carpet and painting on the 3rd floor in 2020, and then some window replacement at the First Street building down by the police and library.
And I wouldn't anticipate that would all be window replacement down at First Street, but there might be some other miscellaneous capital items. There's a few windows down on First Street that need to be looked at. So it's just an anticipation of some capital items there.
Yeah.
And for the carpeting replacement, I should point out that I believe that the council chambers carpet is fairly new, and so this isn't the carpet that we're looking at. It would be in the offices that I believe probably has not been replaced since 1990.
This was put in at the same time, it's just obviously not as,
Doesn't get used as much.
Doesn't get used as much. I think the 1994 when we remodeled.
91, I thought it was.
91, 92.
91, I thought it was. Oh, yeah, no, it's probably.
It's got some miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's seen its better days.
So
I don't know why First Floor has to wait till 2020.
that's fine. So then the next 3 sheets it's kind of just a long range projection on buildings, equipment, and streets and infrastructure that have been identified. So those are more fluid items that can be changed. For the purpose of tonight's meeting, we want to just get discussion recommendations on 19 and 20 because that's what we'll be bonding for.
One of the things that we talked about was anticipation of starting some maintenance on trails, and we'd kicked around a number, but is that reflected in here anywhere?
Well, I spoke, speaking with Kevin, they're able to do, in other communities I've done crack filling on trails.
It's on this page. That's not up here.
Okay.
Oh, that's the Hagen Street.
For the trail maintenance.
Well, yeah.
We were talking about trail maintenance on the last page.
Yeah, that's, so am I out of, out of sequence here?
2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
So-
you put something.
Yep. So starting in 2021, we did propose putting $50,000 into trail maintenance. But going back to that, in other communities, I've done in the past, I've done crack filling on trails. Just because as you drive down, ride your bike down, there's cracks. They get cracks just like roads get cracks.
Right.
But with the spray patching machine and what Kevin and the crew has done in the past is they've actually taken the spray patcher down trails and spray patched those, cracks. It's a better quality product in my opinion. Lasts a lot longer than a crack fill, and we're able to do it in house. So he kind of steered me away from pushing that up, that crack filling.
Okay,
So that's kind of why we have it out at 2021.
that's great.
Yeah. So as you go around, as the pathway committee goes around, and I know you're kind of inventorying the trails. Once you have them all summarized, I would like to get, a copy of your summary or something where you see kind of the highest needs, highest priorities that we can go and hit. A couple every year, that we can do in house and save some money that way. I think that'd be a good idea.
I think when we start that, probably you and Kevin should be with us just to see, what's this look like? What does it need to look like?
Yeah.
How do we keep from having to replace
Full
this
reconstruction.
or extend the life, double, triple the life of the trail? They should last, to me, should last quite a while with good maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's getting the stress that a
Right.
street gets.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So whenever you start that process, get a hold of me. And I'll get a hold of Kevin. We'll go around and we'll be more than happy
Yeah,
to assist.
we need to figure out the grading scale. How do we use the street scale and compare it to a trail? It's because the use is different. So I'm not clear on how we would rate that yet.
Mm-hmm. And it's people often overlook, you know, the maintenance on a trail. They think they put it in and it's good to go for 30 years. Well, a trail is just like a road. It gets, you know, it gets weathered, you know, it gets cracked. So, I mean, there's maintenance that has to be done on a trail just like there is on a road. And if we want to have a good trail system within the city, you know, we're going to have to appropriate some dollars in the future to maintain them.
And I think we'd be able to pass this on to some of the associations, the private trails that are used as public, but that need maintenance. If there's some skill or grading that we can pass along to them, would be, they would welcome that.
Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, for tonight, obviously you're in a unique position. You'll be reviewing these documents in a couple weeks anyways. So, I mean, again, if you have any questions or concerns or something comes up between now and the council meeting, be sure to write them down and we can address them at that time. So.
Well, thanks for all your hard work on budgeting. I know it's not a fun project.
Yeah, exactly.
I have experience with that myself, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, appreciate all the thought that you've taken to put into it. I would move to approve the Public Works Capital Improvement Plan as presented.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
So maybe in 2021 we'll find out we don't even need that we're able to maintain the trails
right
internally, and
that would be fantastic. Yep.
projects updates.
Just a couple updates for the board tonight. First one being crack fill and flexi patch. Farner is going to be in here next week starting our project that we had approved in the spring. They'll be in town starting that. So just for motorists to be aware that, you know, they'll be working on various streets throughout the city and to give them room to do their work. Second is Vine Street update. I've met with our engineers, kind of did a preliminary meeting with utility companies and our engineers, and we are in the process of mapping out all the underground structures and utility lines and contacting the appropriate people, because there's a couple of fiber lines that run up Vine Street that we'll have to be aware of when construction starts. So just making sure that everybody's on the same page this fall before we start construction in the spring. We'll have a couple of public hearings for that construction that residents will be able to attend and get more information on. So those will be coming up over the winter months, because we're looking to start construction sometime, you know, next spring or you know, so.
So how, question about that discovery process, you know, with the utility lines, and how are the results of those, that research getting documented and stored for future?
So our engineers, they keep, it's all on GIS.
Okay.
So our engineers, once they receive GIS information from Comcast or Xcel Energy, it's downloaded into their GIS system, and they're able to pull those, you know, underground utilities up for future use.
Okay.
Yep.
And then they're maintained as like a record plan that goes in.
Right. I'm big on record keeping.
Yeah.
I don't like doing the same research twice.
No. And that's the benefit of the GIS systems nowadays. Is,
absolutely.
You know, they're able to track and
so we
store
pay someone
information.
outside to take care of all of that GIS right now?
Yep, we do. Yep. So those are kind of the two big project updates that I had. You know, staff is out starting to winterize, you know, facilities, restrooms, getting plow equipment starting. I don't know if anybody's seen the forecast over the next couple of weeks, but it looks fairly chilly. So finishing up some projects within the parks and on the streets, and we'll be starting to hang plow equipment here within the next 2 to 3 weeks, I would assume.
Wow.
Getting everything ready. So, yep, October and November, and you never know, unfortunately.
It'll come holiday decoration season.
That'll be coming up, yep. Kevin looks forward to that every year.
November
2012. So,
Before they came.
Okay. Any items for future agenda? Paul says nothing comes to mind. He's still a mile out.
oh jeez, Paul. Poor Paul.
Wow, it must be horrible out there.
I have nothing.
Excellent.
Move to adjourn?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.